Okay. All right. Has this fixed the audio problem? I've just kind of re-selected a microphone. So please let me know if it's working. Thanks. Yes, awesome. Great. Well, so that's very nice to know that I've been chatting here for the past, 15, 20 minutes with no audio. But thank you so much, guys, for turning up. I had actually started just kind of playing around with my own story that I had here for Adelaide until other people showed up. But it's, I think, much more interesting to kind of chat about other people's stories and brainstorm that a little bit. Let's see here if we can try doing guest star for the first time. Let's pull this together. So what I might do is I might see if I can get an invite to Colleen. Now, as long as you have set up your Twitch with a phone number, you should be able to join as a guest star. So with this, let's pull this together here. Getting started. Wonderful. Love Twitch customer support. So we have the live chat here. We want to go into the studio, probably. Video production. Oh, lovely. We have guest star, new. Open guest star. Thank you. Got it. Lovely. I can invite guests, so I'm going to invite Colleen onto the stream. That's okay, Colleen. We're trying this out for the first time. Okay. All right, so creative a Colleen. All right, so that should have sent an invite in there, and then let us also invite Marguerite to the stage as well, may as well. Seeing as we have two lovely people here. Okay. And then we'll send that invite. All right. So, okay. So I don't know whether anyone is interested in trying to join me or not. But Colleen and Marguerite, I I know you guys haven't started yet, but I did give it a try, trying to invite you guys via the guest slot. So we have Colleen as ready, and then we have, let's try this here. And then we have Marguerite as ready. So it says, we're having trouble connecting your guest, but we'll give it a shot. Marguerite, yes! Awesome. So we have managed to get you into the backstage. So that means that if I switch, hopefully, to having you show on stream, Yes, push guest. Hello, Marguerite. Yay! Good. This is me learning Twitch. So thank you for helping me do that. Oh, good. Yeah, it's I originally Twitch was kind of you streamed just you and but they recently brought in that beta where you can invite people on stage, and I was like, yes, this is the perfect way to do a bit of collaborating with some creative people and be able to do that. So hi Colleen, how are you? Oh, I cannot hear you, but we can see there's some very fun, creative things going in the background on your wall. It doesn't say that she's muted in the back end here, but you, yeah, so you may have to pick like your default microphone, which is what I had to do for you guys to hear me. So here I was chatting away on the stream, not no one hearing me, and yes, that was kind of how that happened. But mm, interesting. Okay, okay, there we go. Um, Yes. I love in the background, Colleen, it looks like you've got a bunch of post-it notes. Is that for creative related reasons? I mean, maybe do a thumbs up if we can't if we can't get your audio working, but um yeah, that kind of like looks like some very creative brainstorming in the background there. Storyboard. Oh, goodness. I wish we had your audio so we could ask you about it. Yeah, all good. You take your time. Um, but Marguerite, I know that the last time we spoke, you were um, planning out your story. Um, like, where are you at now? Mhm. So we're learning a little bit about each group or person in every episode, essentially. Mhm. Mhm. Because I know that you wanted to not only have this fictional story, but you essentially wanted to incorporate businesses in your town um, as part of that interactive experience. Have you had a chance to chat to anyone about being a site? Go for it. I don't know how that works. whether yeah. Um, yeah, so for those of you who I suppose are tuning in, I've met Marguerite before, so she's come and played with the Story City tools before, and we had a chat about her project. So she has a story which um, uh, is a love story, I would say. Correct? Like, yeah, this first kind of is a love story. You know, there's hopefully going to be a a wedding involved and those kind of things. But she lives in a smaller town in the same province that I live in Canada, in Alberta, and she had this amazing idea of being able to drive visitation to local businesses. And she is a writer, and as all of us are here in this stream. And she's like, I know that fiction is something that captivates people, and I want to turn my fiction into an interactive experience that can then support my local community. And so that's kind of where and that's kind of where that um, happens as kind of like a base. I think that I may have set up the chat so that it doesn't allow you to post links, maybe for safety reasons. But your sweetspot.ca, correct? Hi. Mm. It's all right. She'll come back. She's got the link in there, so she's probably just restarting her computer would be my guess. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, let's do this. Mhm. Beautiful. All right, let's see if I can share this back as at the same time. Let's do this here. Um, I have. I have heard of those kind of things, yeah. Mm, mm, I like that. That's nice. And I very much enjoy the redo of the website that I saw from the last time. But so I remember you kind of like this was your portal to connect those small businesses to that, and then the idea was to, I suppose, use um, the story that you are telling to then incorporate their story. Is that correct? That was kind of how that was going. Nice. How are we doing, Colleen? I might get you to speak. 'Cause I'm not sure if I can. Yeah. Hello, Colleen. We can definitely see you. We can. Hello. Joining us all the way from Australia. So, so to anyone else who ends up coming to collaborate at these creator labs, what we've done is in the chat, people have dropped their comments and names. I have pulled their Twitch name out of that and sent an invite via guest star, and you ladies would have gotten it as a push notification in Twitch, I'm assuming. We can definitely see you and hear you. So, yeah. Woohoo! Twitch and testing our Twitch beta feeds. Uh, um, yeah, so that's all right. But yeah, so essentially just got the push notification. I kind of kept an eye on my stream chat. And then what it would do is it would kind of bring you up in the backstage. I would assign a slot, they call it. And then once I did that, I could push a person to a stream. So that's how we ended up doing it with Colleen, and how we ended up doing it with Marguerite. So maybe I'll snapshot this as a little kind of video explainer to keep in our channel, so that if anyone else is turning up for a bit of creative brainstorming, this is how we've done it. Um, yes, but Colleen's joining us from Australia, and Colleen is also someone else that we have had the pleasure of chatting to as well. So yes. Oh, that's exciting. Do you have an idea of which one you want to do? Yes. So the one at Sandgate, you are a ghost hunter. There is a ghost ship that has mysteriously appeared, and you are trying to figure out why. Um, so I love that one. That's by the very talented Carly Scott, um, who put that one together. Um, yeah, so that's very fun. And if you want to, rather than looking at a choose your own adventure, have a look at a puzzle trail. There are several puzzle trails in the Chermside area, um, in the Seventh Brigade Park. So there's Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. It's because I use an external program called OBS to stream. And so it uses what they call a virtual camera. So people in Twitch can see me if they are just watching, but in the backstage, it just shows like this little blue icon, which is the OBS icon. So that's why you can't see me in the backstage on Twitch. Yep. So you would have had on one page was the channel, and then on the other page would have been the backstage where we pulled you in. So this is great. This has turned out to be a very interesting kind of like learning curve as this first one. So thank you, ladies, for being my crash test dummies. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful, excellent. So on that one, that's where I can see all of the creative chats and the chats in the chat column there. I've just kind of muted it so you don't end up with the double people like talking over the top, and then I got my audio through the backstage. So that's how I kind of had set it up. But yeah, I'm very glad that Twitch allows me to do this, because then I can talk to you guys live, and we can brainstorm some fun things. Although I have to know, Colleen, explain how your storyboard works behind you, please. How it works. I want to know how the storyboard behind you works. Yeah. Love it. Mhm. Mhm. Okay, and so the rows are chapters, or are the columns the chapters? Yeah. Ah. Yep. Nice. So you have a good story instinct in you, right? For at least for novel. Yeah. And so the yeah. And so the key is then to adapt it to other forms, I suppose. But like yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. I had a I wonder if I've got the. Oh, I don't have the notebook here. But I would do a similar thing where I used to go into a book, very kind of half baked, and I would kind of write my way along, and then I would come back and I would then plot out all the things that I had done. And now I am one of those weird writers who will pre-plot my book to absolute, like, within an inch of its life, before I start writing it now. So now I pre-do all of those like storyboarding things, and yeah, and then continue that way. So that tends to remove my yeah. Love it. I love it. I particularly enjoy index cards and moving those index cards around, being like, I want this to happen, and then you can kind of move around where you want it to happen. Um, that's what I would like to have in the Story City Creator Tools actually one day, is your ability to essentially have um, a story seen as like a node, and you can kind of move that. You could be like, oh no, this needs to be earlier or later, or so you can also kind of like map it out in the same way that you're mapping it out behind you. Um, yeah, that's like the dream one day to be able to do that. I love that. Really? Really? Oh my goodness. Hold on. Free customizable storyboarding templates. Oh my goodness. There we go. So there's ones for like comic books, there's ones for like talks, there's like healthy lifestyle, like vision boardy kind of things. What? Wow. There's quite a few. Nice. Yes. Hmm. That would be cool and helpful for, if you wanted to start doing like AR related elements for things as well. Yeah, we use Canva for a lot of like for social media posts and for posters and like stickers and all of those kind of things. Um, so I've even used it for like presentations. It is really slick for presentations. Um, but um, I'm really excited to kind of see the launch of your small business side of things. Have you had anyone kind of come on board yet, Margaret? Silk maker. L A Lotus soap. Looks beautiful. Nice. Lovely. Oh, that's exciting. So is the idea then that the story, which is, like the love story that you are making, is the idea then that you incorporate the business into that story? Okay. Mm. Oh, cute. Lovely. I like that. I could also, I could also imagine like the character like being like maybe their job is them being a soap maker and like all of the possibilities you can have like in the future, right? Um, nice. That's super cool. Um, awesome. And so is there anything that we can help you brainstorm right now, story wise? Like, mhm, 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 mm. Mhm. Yeah, so the Maker Fair, and so Fair is spelled Faire. Is that the correct? Yeah, okay. So it's at the BMO Centre in Calgary. So let's pull up that BMO Centre. Let's plan your event. Do they have a site map? Let's have a look here. Why Calgary? Oh, so that's the Calgary Stampede grounds. Ah, okay. Um, yeah. Yeah, so you could definitely, yeah, so you could definitely do that. So, just having a look at the website now here, and so it says it's in Hall F. So, if we look up the BMO Centre Calgary map, and if we pull up, say something like this, images, looking here. So it's the main entrance, corral. Let's see if there's a better. Here we are. So these are the different halls. Okay, so if you're in like hall F, you're essentially in one kind of oblong area. Do you know what businesses are going to be at the fair at the moment, or are you kind of doing like fake businesses? Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. Mm. It'd be, yeah, it'd, yeah. I mean, the thing that I would almost do, right? If you look at the Maker Fair, and so there's a section that's called Meet the Makers, and it has Meet the Makers 2022, right? And so the 2022 would give you an idea of the types of makers that are there, right? So there's quite a few people who have, say, 3D printing kind of businesses here. There's a lot of art print design businesses. There's definitely like skincare design, like businesses here, right? There's like crochet, like little crochet animals and those kind of things. So you could go through the previous makers and find commonalities. So you can be like, okay, well, if this maker specifically isn't there, at least one of these makers would be there. And the great thing about it is that you can pre-write it before putting the location in. And so when you go into the hall, you can open up your Google Maps, and your Google Maps will drop a pinpoint on the map as to where you are standing. So you could go and find that crochet maker in the hall, and you could be like, all right, this is where Google Maps is telling me I am. You can drop your pin there, and it will activate it, right? You could activate it within 5 minutes, um, very quickly, because yeah, correct, exactly. So 100%, right? So you're like, okay, so I definitely want to feature a soap maker, I want to feature a knitter, and I want to feature a 3D printing, you know, um, person who loves Star Wars and like whatever, right? And so you can you kind of guess from who was there the previous year. And so when they do know a week beforehand, you can be like, hey, who's in it a week beforehand? And you can reach out to those people and be like, hey, I'm just letting you know I'm making an interactive experience. I would like to showcase you in my interactive experience during the fair. This is the story that I have written. Here is some, social media and some flyers for your booth. And I would like to have you in as a guest at my booth for the Twitch stream that I'm going to be running during the fair, and like those kind of things. And then when you are going into Story City, so if I kind of share my screen here, so when you are in there, what you would do is you would essentially be like, okay, I'm going to pre-write my 4 chapters. Um, and when I get into the BMO Centre, um, and Adelaide has a kind of a similar centre just south of the city. If I just kind of find this is a showground here, right? And so let's assume that this is the BMO Centre and this is your Hall F, right? Google doesn't show any necessarily defining features, but if you opened Google Maps and you were standing in the hall, you would be like, oh, it's showing me as being here, right? And so what you could do is you can just drop your pin there, and then that would set the location. So if you have pre-written your story, you've already sent it to us for a quick approval, it'll then be ready for you to literally just drop the location in there and save it. Once you've saved the location, then that location goes live in the story, right? And the other thing that you can do as well, if you're like, oh, I'm a bit worried that like, particularly inside, right? Because inside GPSs can be a bit, you know, not the best, depending on what like the Wi-Fi situation is, particularly of like fairgrounds. Yeah, so essentially, Yeah, so essentially what you could also do is that if you're worried that like in the hall itself the GPS isn't going to be particularly accurate, what you can do is you can actually increase the radius for the story. So if you dropped a pin, say here, you can increase the radius so that it takes in the whole hall. So that like that way you're not getting people locked out because their GPS isn't registering correctly. And then what you would do is that in the content of the story itself, you would do a verbal description of where they are. They are by the back wall, and here is a photograph, right? Or what the Makers Fair will probably do is they'll actually probably give you um, a picture. They'll probably give you an image of where your stall is within the fairgrounds. And so you could use that and literally draw directions on it, and have that kind of as a just in case, right? Just in case people's GPSs aren't working properly, they literally have a photograph of the stall, which you could take and upload super quickly, right? Like within 5 minutes, and then you can increase that radius so that like if for some reason people's GPS isn't working, it will at least still trigger because as long as they're standing in the hall, it should register them as being there. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, so you would put essentially a QR code on that table, and then it would allow people to scan it and go directly to the page, right? Yeah, so not within Story City because Story City was always built um, for it to be run as kind of like a through the city street. So it was never necessarily built to do it within a um, inside a area. In saying that, like those halls that are at big fairgrounds and showgrounds tend to be large enough that they will register properly in the GPS, right? Because they're not, because they don't, those fairgrounds tend to be, they're not surrounded by super tall buildings that are going to block GPS signal. Um, they tend to be quite open and will have Wi-Fi as part of the setup. So that helps GPS triangulate, right, the Wi-Fi for that. And then because they are spread so far apart, generally the GPS is okay in those specific situations, right? Um, the um, and the idea being is that like that auto triggering, that means that you don't have to worry about whether or not someone's phone scans the QR code properly, whether or not like like they found the right way, like so those kind of things are the reasons why we moved away from QR codes. And it's actually really funny that you ask about QR codes because when I was doing my 20-minute ramble where I didn't have microphones and I was showing people what one of the original posters looked like for for the original project that I did. And so the original test pilot project that I did that eventually became Story City, we created these posters. They all looked the same, but they had a different QR code on them depending on what web page we wanted to send them to. And we printed these out and we zip tied them to poles around the city, right? And so that was how we originally ran Story City. But of course, it ran into the problem that all things that have a physical presence do, in that we had to keep an eye on the posters. Posters would go missing. We'd have to print new ones and replace them. And so, like, that was how we originally did a project. And so I found it really funny that, like, my ramble, when no one would have heard anything in the first 20 minutes of this stream, was me giving the background to how my story, my original story that I wrote that became Story City started with these posters, and that was what I was going to work on the stream if no one came to say hello, if yourself or Colleen didn't come to say hello. And so um, I was going to like work on that story and adapt it from where it used to be in Adelaide to like being a story I could place anywhere. So it's very funny that you were asking me about QR codes because that was where we started was QR codes. And yeah, so they're definitely helpful, particularly yeah, particularly for events, right? Like, so when you're talking like events where, like this Maker Fair, where you're making something and it's a pop up essentially for a couple of days, right? Particularly if it's indoors. And so you can control the placement of those QR codes, right? And in that case, it makes things a lot easier because you don't need to worry about the fact that they'll go missing. You don't have to worry about like all of those kind of things, right? And so what that does is it means that people can pick up something immediately without having to download an app, without having to do like X, Y, and Z thing, right? And so like it's fair that you would say for this particular um, um, like event or fair, what I might do is I might just use a free QR code generator, use Canva to make myself a poster, and just replace the QR codes in there for each person. Um, and so, in that case, if that's what you want to do, you want to make sure that you are writing the story in such a way that it does not need to be read sequentially, right? Because in that case, if anybody can come up to a QR code, and if that QR code is meant to be in the middle of a story, so it's meant to be like chapter 3 or chapter 4 in a story, right? They scan that QR code, and if they don't know what's going on, you may lose someone in picking up an experience. So yeah. So that's something that you then have to consider when you create that story is like, can you make maybe each story around each um, maker in this fair, yes, they might link, but they may also be little self-contained stories. So it doesn't matter that people haven't come to your booth first, um, that they can um, still enjoy a sample of that story. So that's what QR codes would change in this case, right? So in the case of like, if you were to use something like Story City, what you would do is you would probably make a more generic poster. It would be a QR code to download the app. You would give the title of the story. So people would download it. They would find that story on the app and it would direct them to start at your booth, right? Yeah. And so that's if you're wanting to write a story that's like starts here and goes here, here, and here and has a distinct finish, right? Like that would be how you would do that. But if you were just wanting to try and show off the concept, right, where you're like, I just want you guys to understand how this works. Here is the QR code that you can pick up, and you have these little mini self contained stories. You get that point across where you're like, now this is just one tiny story. Imagine that this is a self contained, that this is a game that spreads across all of Calgary, and we are actually bringing people to you as part of a scavenger hunt, as part of a, serialized audio, as part of a, serialized link to a novel that sells really well, and so these are like mini story, like or whatever, right? However you do that, and we have, yeah. Mm, mm, mhm. Cute. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I suppose what you're describing there is what you would term like an like those kind of internet scavenger hunts have been set up for like TV shows. So like most famously for like the Sherlock TV show, they've kind of set those scavenger hunts up. It's that was more like content scattered across various websites in like audio and video format and those kind of things. So it didn't involve businesses necessarily, didn't involve real locations, but like you could then incorporate that into it, right? Um, and there have been like campaigns done where people will like hide buried treasure, and you need to collectively get together in teams where like someone in Australia has to find something out, and then someone in Canada has to find something out, and then someone actually goes and digs a hole in Asia and then discovers the prize, and everyone who contributed gets like a piece of that prize or whatever, right? So like people have done those kind of very big ambitious um, ones too. And there's a great way to kind of combine those, for sure. And you and I have spoken about this before. Even as you are crafting these stories, and you're obviously focusing on your town initially as a way to test this out, to test out the narrative and those kind of things. But you and I talked previously about the fact that when you are creating something that you want it to be interactive, um, to try and pick those very generic locations in a city that allows you to build that following globally. And then you plug in the businesses that are relevant. So, like, as you said, like you could have different businesses in a city, and so one might be a soap business, and so they're washing their hands with that soap, and so that way you can do those small tweaks that don't require you to rewrite a whole story, um, but then allow you to make those adaptations based on whichever small businesses um, want to join you on your journey, um, to tell this beautiful love story, right? Yeah. Yeah, so that's exciting. So the Makers Fair then looks like it is, when is it? It's May. All right. So then I am hoping then that as you design this out, that you come to more of these creative collaboration sessions, and we'll brainstorm it out. And as I said, it may be that you decide like QR codes are easier for this, and that's fine. Whatever. Like it's the same. Well, no, because we tested it outside, right? So like in our um original incarnation of Story City, we used originally those posters zip tied to poles. And then in later projects, when we were given full budgets from cities to be able to work with them to do these choose your own adventures, we had them as part of pavement posters. So they're like non slip posters that go onto the concrete on the ground. And those also had QR codes on them. But we still had the problem where a cleaning crew on the municipality didn't know the project was running and removed it, or you'd have someone deface it or draw graffiti on it or like whatever, right? And so those were all, because they were all in public spaces, that made QR codes hard, right? And that's why I'm saying that like QR codes work in a closed environment where you have someone essentially watching over the code, right? And so you then don't have to worry about them going missing. You don't have to worry about those kind of things. So it might be for the purposes of demonstration that might be easier, right? And I don't mind the fact that that is easier. Like the whole point of these creator labs is like, yes, we want to help you build on Story City, but we just want to help more people make interactive stories just in general. And if that means that a QR code works better in an event, then a QR code works better in an event. And that's what we brainstorm in these sessions, right? If you turn up. So it's all the same. It ends up being the same because it's location based storytelling, regardless. Mm. Yeah. And when you and when you are in a public space, the simplest way to do that is with something like Story City because you don't have to rely on signage to do it, right? When it is in an internal space where um, you have written the story in such a way that it doesn't matter if they pick it up halfway through the story, then QR code makes total sense. And it just depends on how you make that story, right? Yeah. Yeah, so in that case, that's when you would have issues with QR codes because what you would do is you would make that QR code go to the content for that maker, right? And in that case, they would skip whatever came beforehand and would only view the content from that thing. Um, Whereas, like, if you were like, no, this story has a progression, they need to see it from the start. What you would do is you would point a QR code to them downloading the app, the Story City app, for example, and the Story City app would tell them your start point's over here. You need to go to this booth as your start point, right? And then they could follow it around the thing, right? So that's so what method you use depends entirely on how you want to construct your story. Because you can make those because essentially a story is a series of scenes. Those scenes would have some sort of barrier or plot point or discovery or whatever. And so like you can write a scene so that it is self-contained and someone could read it as a piece of flash fiction, right? You just have to, when you construct that, you would construct each scene as though it was its own piece of flash fiction and make sure people had enough characterization and description and whatever that was necessary for them to feel satisfied about the progression of something like this or a cliffhanger or like whatever that is. And there's a great science fiction website called Daily Flash Fiction, which gives little like 1,000-word flash fiction pieces, and you can go through a bunch of those and be like, how do they end? Some of them end in cliffhangers, some of them end in mysteries, some of them end in whatever. And that kind of is a really great way to see scenes as self-contained stories, which you could then potentially link together, right? And so it depends on your natural writing style sometimes. Sometimes you might have to write something as a progression and then retool it. And then you can come here and be like, yo, I'm not quite sure how I would make this thing be self-contained. How do we do that? Or yeah, right. So it's yeah, you've got until May. But I think that the easiest way to do this is just to kind of be like, okay, let's pre-write this story. Let's figure out who the generic makers would potentially be so that like um you could have everything pre-set up so you could already have your QR codes pointing to a page on your website that you would host that content. If you wanted to go the QR code route, or you could already have it loaded into the Story City tools, just waiting for a location to be dropped if you go the Story City route. Um, and then that way it can all be pre-ready. So the week beforehand, you contact the people and be like, right, I want to know who my list of creators are, list of people at the fair is, and where, and the map for the fair, please. And then you can very easily, within like 5 to 10 minutes, um, either have a location in Story City, or you can already have pre-printed out QR code based flyers or posters, and then you would contact the businesses being like, hey, I'm doing an interactive thing. My story requires a soap maker, a 3D printer, or whatever, and would you be interested in being that person? Yeah. And sometimes, generally with those conversations, they maybe want to see the story first. And so, like, having that story kind of preloaded in just makes that easier. So, no. So I just looked up your website. Um, yeah. Mm. cute. Canva. It's just so handy. Right? So handy. Yep. Like to put our shout out for the Aussies who made it. Not me. but the Canva creators are Australian based. So yeah. Yeah. Hmm. And definitely. Yeah, and I mean, like Canva is our kind of like piece de resistance. Like we hope that one day we will be kind of the Canva of this kind of interactive storytelling. You know, you plug and play, you have a bunch of templates, you know, like that's kind of that they're the ones that we hold up as like being like this is what we want to emulate and try to be able to be that kind of helpful to the world as they have been. So yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, a lot of that's very kind of technical in places like Unity and stuff like that at the moment. And yeah. Yeah, and I think that maybe the Google AR kits or the Apple AR kits may head that direction. You never know. But yeah, it's an exciting time, particularly for those kind of interactive ways of telling stories and engaging people. Um, I realize now that we have gone, you know, to 5:15, but it was an absolute delight. Thank you for joining me and being my guinea pig for this first kind of full stream, creator stream. So I really appreciate it, and now we know how guest star works. Mm. Yep, yep, and they're out of sync. Hmm. Yeah. And I think and I just wanted to thank Colleen for dropping in a little bit and talking about her storyboard because she said here that her computer keeps dropping out. A lot of Twitch streaming magic comes from the fact that you have a steady internet connection, and sometimes Australia is not Australia is not well known for its steady internet connection. So Colleen, that may have unfortunately been the problem. But like fingers crossed next time around. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like that's where you would hope that whether it's like whether you can like visit BMO, like go to another event at BMO earlier and just check to see like if I go to stream a YouTube video while I'm standing in a hall at BMO, does it do it well? Because then I would potentially be able to use the Twitch stream app on my phone to be able to do it, right? So you can kind of do those tests in the lead up to, right? Mm. Yeah, I am not not the person to ask about those kind of setups. But there are some. I definitely know that there are some amazing kind of at least articles on Twitch about how to do those setups. But yeah, the only problem would be what is the Wi-Fi like at BMO? Because generally what you want is a landline in for something like that. So yeah. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I love that those services like exist now that you can rent those kind of things, right? Mm. One day I hope so. I know that Twitch does have an API, but the question of how that would go in, that's a question that my CTO would have to go into. Mm, mm. Well, I mean, the great thing about Twitch is that you can, yeah, the great thing about Twitch is that you could use it to stream those performances. Twitch then makes a recording of those performances, and then you could at least load the video of that. Like, if you're considering like obviously the Makers Faire, it's only on for like 2 days and is gone. But if you're considering something like a long-term interactive piece where you might have a launch period where you have live performances which you stream on Twitch, you could then load those videos into the piece, and then that could then exist for months or years afterwards, right? So yeah, that'd be cool. Take busking to an interesting and weird place. Well, thanks, Marguerite. It was awesome to brainstorm with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you on another Monday soon. Awesome, awesome. Good, good. I'm glad. And we're also, so this isn't the only stream that we're going to be doing during the week. So we're also going to be doing a stream on either Thursday or Friday nights every week where we actually will do a choose your own adventure on the stream. So we're going to get together, bring in like one of the creators for a choose your own adventure on the platform. We'll get maybe a bunch of people together. Maybe they'll be voice actors. Maybe they'll just be me and my friends who pretend to read a story. But we'll argue through the choices and do a choose your own adventure on a stream. So that's kind of the idea that Mondays we do creator labs and we brainstorm, and then on like Thursdays or Friday evenings we do a little show where we all argue our way through a choose your own adventure. So it'll be fun. Fun experiment. Alrighty. Thanks, Marguerite. Bye everyone.